This is Ruth 1:1. It says, "Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled, that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons." Now people read this verse and they see that Ruth was from the country of Moab, and they say, see, Ruth was a Moabite, and they close the book. But when you read the history in the Bible of what happened to Israel before the time of Ruth, you end up with a different conclusion about Ruth. Also, if you were able to see the different lands that the Bible talks about leading up to the time of Ruth, you would clearly see that she was not a Moabite by blood and that she was actually an Israelite. So today, I'm going to give you the history and show you these places on a map so that you can see for yourself who Ruth was. The history before the time of Ruth is the key to understanding the book of Ruth. So let's start in Numbers 21, right after the Israelites came out of the wilderness. Now remember, the Israelites have no land. They're coming straight out of the wilderness on their way to the land of Canaan. Let's start there. This is Numbers 21, verse 4. It says, "And they journeyed from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to compass the land of Edom. And the soul of the people was much discouraged because of the way." Let's go down to verse 11. "And they journeyed from Oboth and pitched in Ijebarim, in the wilderness which is before Moab, toward the sun rising." So this is the path they were taking. Verse 13. "From thence they removed and pitched on the other side of Arnon, which is in the wilderness that cometh out of the coast of the Amorites." So they went around Edom and around the land of Moab and passed the Arnon River. It says, "For Arnon is the border of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites." So you see here that the Arnon River is between the land of Moab and the land of the Amorites. It's the border between the two places. The Arnon River plays a major role in understanding the story of Ruth, as you're going to see later. Okay, so Israel went up to Jahaz and they set up camp. Let's see what happened next in verse 21. "And Israel sent messengers unto Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, Let me pass through thy land. We will not turn into the fields or into the vineyards. We will not drink of the waters of the well, but we will go along by the king's highway until we be past thy borders." So Israel asked Sihon, king of the Amorites, to pass through his land. They were going to travel on the king's highway until they passed his borders. Now the king's highway was a road that went through the land of Edom, Moab, and the Amorites' land all the way up to Damascus. So what they wanted to do was come into the Amorites' land and get on the king's highway and walk all the way up until they got past his border, which was the Jabbok River. And then they were going to make a left and cross over the Jordan River and come down into the land of Canaan. So let's see what Sihon did. Verse 23. "And Sihon would not suffer Israel to pass through his border. But Sihon gathered all his people together and went out against Israel into the wilderness. And he came to Jahaz and fought against Israel. And Israel smote him with the edge of the sword and possessed his land from Arnon unto Jabbok, even unto the children of Ammon, for the border of the children of Ammon was strong. And Israel took all these cities, and Israel dwelt in all the cities of the Amorites, in Heshbon, and in all the villages thereof." So Israel defeated the Amorites and took all of the Amorites' land. In verse 24 it says, "They took all the land from the Arnon River unto the Jabbok River." Verse 25 says that Israel took all the cities of the Amorites in Heshbon and in all the villages thereof. So Israel took all this land from the Amorites. This land was now Israelite territory. Now here's where it gets interesting. Watch this. In verse 26, for Heshbon was the city of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab and taken all his land out of his hand, even unto Arnon. So wait a minute. What does this verse tell us? It says, Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab and taken all his land out of his hand, even unto Arnon. So that means that all of the land that the Amorites had, that land used to belong to the Moabites. So the territory of the Moabites used to look like this. The Moabites' territory used to go from the Zered River all the way up to the Jabbok River. But when Sihon, king of the Amorites, came against the Moabites, he took all of their land from the Arnon River up to the Jabbok River. See that? That's why when you look at different maps, you see that even though this land belonged to the Amorites, there is still a small section of land inside the land that belongs to the Amorites that is called the Plains of Moab. Why? Because all this used to be Moab's land. But the Amorites came and took it away. Now this is very important to understand. Let's go down to verse 29. It says, woe to thee, Moab! Thou art undone, O people of Chemosh. He hath given his sons that escaped and his daughters into captivity unto Sihon, king of the Amorites. So when Sihon, king of the Amorites, took all this land from the Moabites, he put all the Moabite men and women and children that were living in this part of the land into captivity. Now you have to understand, this is very important. You have to understand that Sihon didn't capture the Moabites that were below the Arnon River. Those Moabites didn't go into captivity. They stayed below the Arnon River, and the Arnon River became the border between Moab and the Amorites, as we read earlier. See, all this is very important in order for you to understand the story of Ruth. Now, we already read that Israel came and took all this land from the Amorites. So this land became Israelite territory. So let's see what Israel did when they took this land. This is Numbers 22:1. And the children of Israel set forward and pitched in the plains of Moab on this side Jordan by Jericho. So Israel set up camp here in the plains of Moab. Now notice, the plains of Moab are not down below the Arnon River where the actual Moabites are. The plains of Moab are totally separate from the land of Moab. And this is where Israel set up camp. Verse 2. And Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. Balak was the new king of Moab, and he saw what Israel did to the Amorites because he was down here in the land of Moab below the Arnon River when it happened. We know he was down here because if he was up above the Arnon River, then Sihon would have put him in captivity with the other Moabite captives. Verse 3. And Moab was sore afraid of the people because they were many. And Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel. So the Moabites down here below the Arnon River were afraid because they thought Israel was going to cross the Arnon River border and take away their land like they did to the Amorites. So we see that the actual Moabites were in the land of Moab below the Arnon River. Okay, let's put together what we learned so far. So the Amorites invaded Moab, and they took all the land above the Arnon River from the Moabites. Then they put all the Moabites that were in that part of the land into captivity. Then Israel came and took the land from the Amorites. So what happened to the Moabite captives when Israel took over the land? Well, Moses tells us in Deuteronomy 2, verse 32. This is Moses talking. He said, "Then Sihon came out against us, he and all his people, to fight at Jahaz. And the Lord our God delivered him before us, and we smote him and his sons and all his people." Moses said that Israel killed Sihon, his sons, and all his people, meaning every Amorite that was in that land at that time got killed. Now, what about the Moabites that Sihon had in captivity? Watch this. Deuteronomy 2 and 34. "And we took all his cities at that time, and utterly destroyed the men and the women and the little ones of every city. We left none to remain." Moses said they left none to remain. They killed every man, woman, and child in every city. The Amorites and the Moabite captives were all killed. Therefore, we know that there were no Amorites or any Moabites at all above the Arnon River. This was all Israelite territory. Watch this. Deuteronomy 3, verse 1. "Then we turned and went up the way to Bashan. And Og, the king of Bashan, came out against us, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei." So after Israel took the land from the Amorites, they went across the Jabbok River into Bashan, and they fought against King Og at Edrei. Verse 2. "And the Lord said unto me, Fear him not, for I will deliver him and all his people and his land into thy hand, and thou shalt do unto him as thou didst unto Sihon, king of the Amorites, which dwelt at Heshbon. So the Lord our God delivered into our hands Og also, the king of Bashan, and all his people, and we smote him until none was left to him remaining. And we took all his cities at that time. There was not a city which we took not from them. 80 cities, all the region of Argob, the kingdom of Og in Bashan. All these cities were fenced with high walls, gates, and bars, beside unwalled towns a great many. And we utterly destroyed them, as we did unto Sihon, king of Heshbon, utterly destroying the men, women, and children of every city. So the Israelites defeated King Og, and once again they killed every man, woman, and child in every city, just like they did to Sihon, king of the Amorites. Now watch this, verse 8. "And we took at that time out of the hand of the 2 kings of the Amorites the land that was on this side Jordan, from the river of Arnon unto Mount Hermon." So now we see that Israel had all this land in their possession, from the Arnon River up to Mount Hermon. Understand this, there were no Amorites or Moabites living in this land. The Bible says they were all killed. All this land was Israelite territory. The Moabites were down here under the Arnon River. Okay, now that we have that history, let's start putting the pieces together. Numbers 32 and 1. "Now the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had a very great multitude of cattle. And when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that behold, the place was a place for cattle, the children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spake unto Moses and to Eleazar the priest, and unto the princes of the congregation, saying, Ataroth, and Daban, and Jazer, and Nimrah, and Heshbon, and Elealah, and Shabam, and Nebo, and Beon. Even the country which the Lord smote before the congregation of Israel is a land for cattle, and thy servants have cattle. Wherefore, said they, if we have found grace in thy sight, let this land be given unto thy servants for a possession, and bring us not over Jordan. Now remember, originally all the tribes were headed to the land of Canaan. But when the tribe of Reuben and the tribe of Gad saw how good the land was that they had already conquered, they asked Moses for that land for a possession. They didn't want to go across the Jordan River into Canaan. They wanted that land. Let's go down to verse 19. This is what they said. For we will not inherit with them on yonder side Jordan or forward, because our inheritance is fallen to us on this side Jordan eastward. The tribes of Reuben and Gad wanted to stay in the land they were in. Let's see what Moses did. Verse 33. And Moses gave unto them, even to the children of Gad, and to the children of Reuben, and unto half the tribe of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, the land with the cities thereof in the coast, even the cities of the country round about. So Moses gave all of the Amorite land to the tribe of Reuben, the tribe of Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh. Those tribes took all that land and split it up among them. You can see this on multiple maps. Some maps are better than others, but you can clearly see that those tribes took possession of all that land. So now that we've established that, let's jump ahead 300 years later to the time of the judges, because the story of Ruth took place during the time of the judges. Ruth 1:1 starts off by saying, Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled. So the story of Ruth didn't take place after the book of Judges, even though that's where it is in the Bible. It took place during the time of the book of Judges. But it's a specific story that happened during that time, so it has its own book. So let's see what happened during the time of the Judges when the story of Ruth actually took place. This is Judges 11:4. And it came to pass in process of time that the children of Ammon made war against Israel. So now the Ammonites want to come against Israel. Not the Amorites we read about before. This is the Ammonites. Verse 5. And it was so that when the children of Ammon made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to fetch Jephthah out of the land of Tob. Here's Gilead right here on the map. So the elders sent for Jephthah because he was an Israelite warrior, and he came. Let's go down to verse 12. And Jephthah sent messengers unto the king of the children of Ammon, saying, What hast thou to do with me, that thou art come against me to fight in my land? And the king of the children of Ammon answered unto the messengers of Jephthah. Now watch the lie that the king tells. He said, Because Israel took away my land when they came up out of Egypt, from Arnon even unto Jabbok, and unto Jordan. Now therefore restore those lands again peaceably. And Jephthah sent messengers again unto the king of the children of Ammon, and said unto them, Thus saith Jephthah, Israel took not away the land of Moab, nor the land of the children of Ammon. Now notice that Jephthah said, Israel took not away the land of Moab, meaning that they didn't take the land below the Arnon River. Because we read earlier that Israel went around Edom and around Moab. They didn't go into the land of Moab because the Most High had already told Moses not to go into that land. That's Deuteronomy 2:9. It says, "And the Lord said unto me, Distress not the Moabites, neither contend with them in battle, for I will not give thee of their land for a possession, because I have given Ar unto the children of Lot for a possession." So Israel never went into the land of Moab below the Arnon River. This is what Jephthah is explaining to the king of Ammon. They went around that land up to Jahaz and set camp up there. Then they took that land from the Amorites, but the king of Ammon is trying to say that that land belonged to him. Now let's pick it up at verse 26. I need you to pay close attention to the question that Jephthah is about to ask the king of Ammon. This is what Jephthah said, verse 26. "While Israel dwelt in Heshbon and her towns, and in Aroer and her towns, and in all the cities that be along by the coast of Arnon, 300 years. Why therefore did ye not recover them within that time?" Now wait a minute. Jephthah just said that Israel had been in that land that they took from the Amorites for 300 years. He said, we've been here all this time. Why are you trying to take this land now all of a sudden? So this conversation took place 300 years after Israel took possession of that land from the Amorites. So now we know that Reuben, Gad, and half of the tribe of Manasseh was still living in that land 300 years later after Moses gave it to them. That's very important. Now, eventually, the other tribes did cross the Jordan River and they went into the land of Canaan. That's why you see maps like this, showing you where the different tribes lived at in the land of Canaan. So based on all that information, we're going to prove now that Ruth was an Israelite. Here we go. Ruth 1:1. "Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled." Again, we see that the story of Ruth took place during the time when the judges of Israel were ruling. It says, "Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled, that there was a famine in the land. And a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. And the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the name of his 2 sons Mahlon and Chilion, Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah. And they came into the country of Moab and continued there." Now, most people read these verses and they think that Elimelech and Naomi left the land of Judah and went over here into the land of Moab. But that's not what the scripture says. The scripture says that they went into the country of Moab. Now, why did the scriptures use the words country of Moab instead of land of Moab? See, what you're about to find out is that the country of Moab is not talking about the land of Moab below the Arnon River. The country of Moab is talking about the plains of Moab up here on the east side of the Jordan River in the land that was given to Reuben. Now we know that Moses gave this highlighted part of the land to the tribe of Reuben in Numbers chapter 32, verse 33. But even after he gave this land to Reuben, the Bible still calls this section of land on the east side of the Jordan River the plains of Moab. The name of this section of land did not change when Reuben got it. Watch this. Numbers 33 and 50. "And the Lord spake unto Moses in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho." Numbers 36:13. "These are the commandments and the judgments which the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses unto the children of Israel in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho. So this part of the land was still being called the plains of Moab even after Israel took it over. So now you have the land of Moab below the Arnon River where the actual Moabites lived, and you have the plains of Moab up here above the Arnon River where the tribe of Reuben is. So, where is the country of Moab where Ruth came from? Is it up here or down there? Let's see. Numbers 21, verse 17. Then Israel sang this song, Spring up, O well, sing ye unto it. The princes digged the well, the nobles of the people digged it, by the direction of the lawgiver with their staffs. And from the wilderness they went to Mattanah, and from Mattanah to Nahaliel, and from Nahaliel to Bamoth. Now watch this, verse 20. And from Bamoth in the valley, that is in the country of Moab, to the top of Pisgah, which looketh toward Jeshimon. Now verse 20 says, Bamoth in the valley, that is in the country of Moab. So according to the scriptures, Bamoth is located in the country of Moab, where Ruth came from. So let's find Bamoth on a map and see where it is. Because wherever Bamoth is, that's where the country of Moab is, according to the scriptures. So let's find it on a couple of maps. Here's the first map. There it is, on the right side of the Dead Sea. Here's another one. There it is again, on the right side of the Dead Sea. Here's another map. There it is again, on the right side of the Dead Sea in the land of Reuben. Let's get another map. There it is again, on the right side of the Dead Sea. And notice what's right next to it? The plains of Moab. See, this whole area is the plains of Moab according to the scriptures. So now we know that the plains of Moab is the same as the country of Moab, because verse 20 tells us that Bamoth is in the country of Moab. Now, since we know that Ruth was from the country of Moab, this proves that Elimelech and Naomi did not go down here to the land of Moab below the Arnon River. They went up here to the plains of Moab, which the Bible also calls the country of Moab, where Ruth was from. Now, let me explain where all the confusion comes from. See, you have to remember that at one point, all this land used to belong to the Moabites. Now, even though the Amorites took this land, and then Israel came and took the land from them, sometimes the Bible still calls this land above the Arnon River the land of Moab. Watch this. Deuteronomy 34, verse 5. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. So here it says that Moses died in the land of Moab. It says that because this land originally belonged to Moab. But watch this. Let's go down to verse 8. It says, And the children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab. But in verse 8, it doesn't say the land of Moab. It says the plains of Moab. Why? Because the plains of Moab lets you know that it's talking about a specific part of the land. The plains of Moab is the country part of the land. Just like in your city, for example, depending on where you live, sometimes you might go out into the country to the farming area, or you might take a drive out into the country to get away from the city for a while. It's the same thing. The plains of Moab is the country or rural area of the land, where the fields are and the areas of vegetation. The country. Look at this, Ruth 1:1. Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab. See, there was a famine in the land, so they went to the country of Moab. Let's look this word country up. Here it is. It says, field, land, cultivated field, of home of wild beasts, plain, the plains of Moab. That's where they went. I hope you see how this is connecting. Ruth 1:1 says the country of Moab because it's talking about a specific part of the land, the plains of Moab, which was located in the part of the land that was given to the tribe of Reuben. That's where Ruth was from. Ruth was an Israelite. So when you come across the words land of Moab in the Bible, you have to figure out if it's talking about the land below the Arnon River or the land above the Arnon River. The Bible makes it possible for you to do that by naming other places in the same area. Now, when you see these places on a map like this, you can't deny the truth. It's clear. Unless you just want to hold on to your doctrine. The actual Moabites were down here below the Arnon River in this part of the land. They were no longer living up here in this area above the Arnon River. Remember, Moses said that Israel killed every man, woman, and child of the Amorites and the Moabite captives that was in this part of the land when Israel took it over. Also, Jephthah told the Ammonite king in the book of Judges that Israel was in possession of that land for 300 years at that point. So there is no way Ruth could have been an actual Moabite by blood, because Ruth was born in that land during the time of the judges. Ruth was an Israelite. She was from the country of Moab, which is in the land that was given to Reuben. Therefore, we can conclude that Ruth was an Israelite from the tribe of Reuben. She was a Hebrew Israelite. Now, I know there's some questions that people might have, so let's deal with some of them. The first question people might have is this: if Ruth was an Israelite, then why does the Bible call Ruth and her sister women of Moab? So let's deal with that. Let's read those two verses in the Bible. This is Ruth 1 verse 3. And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her two sons. And they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. And they dwelt there about 10 years. So the scripture says that they took them wives of the women of Moab. Now, when you look at this phrase, women of Moab, it's important to know that this phrase, women of Moab, is only used once in the whole entire Bible. It's only used once in this verse when referring to Ruth and her sister. In the other cases, when the Bible deals with Moabite women, it refers to them as daughters of Moab. But here in this one particular verse, we see the words women of Moab. We have to pay attention to these little differences because it's a reason for them. So let's look and see what the difference is between the daughters of Moab and the women of Moab. Here we go. What is a daughter of Moab according to the Bible? Let's look at Isaiah 16:2 in the Blue Letter Bible so that you can see this verse broken down with the concordance numbers. These numbers allow you to see what the Hebrew words are instead of the English, and that's important because the scriptures were originally written in Hebrew. Now, as Israelites, we don't get caught up in the Strong's commentary, but it is important to see what these words actually are in the Hebrew. Okay, so right here in Isaiah 16:2, you see that it says, the daughters of Moab. Now, when you click on the word Moab here in reference to the daughters of Moab, you see that it's Strong's number 4124, and the Hebrew word is Mawa'ab. It says Moab. It means of his father. Now, number 1 says a son of Lot by his eldest daughter. So number 1 is dealing with the actual man whose name was Moab because he was the son of Lot. But we're looking to find out who the daughters of Moab are. So let's look at number 2. It says, the nation descended from the son of Lot. Moab was the son of Lot. So number 2 is dealing with the nation of people that came from the seed of the man Moab, the actual blood descendants of the man Moab. So the female blood descendants of Moab would be the daughters of Moab. That's clear. Number 3 says, the land inhabited by the descendants of the son of Lot. Again, Moab is the son of Lot. So number 3 is dealing with the actual bloodline Moabite descendants of the man Moab. Notice that the words descendant and descendants are used to describe the daughters of Moab because these are the female blood relatives of the man Moab. Now, that's the daughters of Moab. Now watch this. Let's go to Ruth 1:4 and look up women of Moab. Here it is. Now when you click on Moab in this verse, you can see that it's a different number. This Moab is Strong's number 4125. Not only is it a different number, it's also a different Hebrew word. This is the Hebrew word Mawa'abya. See, when we looked up the daughters of Moab, they gave us Mawa'ab for the word Moab. But when we look up women of Moab, they give us Mawa'abya for the word Moab. Why are they using 2 different Hebrew words for the same English word? Let's find out. When you look up the women of Moab, Mawa'abya, it says Moabite, and it means from father, what father? Okay, let's see what a Moabite is. Number 1 says, and citizen of Moab. And number 2 says, an inhabitant of the land of Moab. Now notice that it says nothing at all about being a descendant here. All it says is an citizen of the place Moab or an inhabitant of the land Moab. So any woman who lived in a place called Moab was considered to be a woman of Moab. It didn't matter what race you came from. Please notice that it doesn't say anything about being a descendant of the man Moab like it did when we looked up daughters of Moab. See, daughters of Moab is a specific term that lets you know that those women were blood descendants of the man Moab. However, women of Moab are simply women who lived in a place called Moab. If Ruth was an actual blood descendant of the man Moab, then Ruth 1:4 would have said, and they took them wives of the daughters of Moab. But it doesn't say that. It says, and they took them wives of the women of Moab. That's why the writer put women of Moab in this verse, because Ruth and her sister were not Moabites by blood. They were Israelites who lived in the country of Moab, above the Arnon River. So they were called women of Moab. I really hope you can see that. So that's the answer. They were called women of Moab because they were Israelite women who lived in the country of Moab. Number 2, the second argument people have is that they say Ruth can't be an Israelite because she referred to Naomi as being a different people than she was. So let's read it. This is Ruth 1:8. And Naomi said unto her 2 daughters-in-law, Go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as ye have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant you that ye may find rest, each of you, in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voice and wept. Here it is in verse 10. And they said unto her, Surely we will return with thee unto thy people. So we see Ruth telling Naomi that she wants to go back with Naomi to Naomi's people. Okay, let's explain what this means. First, we have to establish something. Where was Naomi going back to? Look at verse 7. It says, Wherefore she went forth out of the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return unto the land of Judah. So Naomi was going back to the land of Judah. Also, let's see where Naomi's husband was from. Verse 1 says, And a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab. So we can see that Naomi and her family were from the tribe of Judah. Now, we already proved that Ruth was from the tribe of Reuben. So all Ruth was saying in verse 10 was this: Let me return with you unto your tribe. Because Ruth was from a different tribe. This is all Ruth was saying. Because what did Naomi say to Ruth to make her say that in the first place? Look at verse 8. And Naomi said unto her 2 daughters-in-law, Go, return each to her mother's house. Now, where was Ruth's mother's house at? It was in the land of Reuben. So Naomi was telling Ruth to go back to her mother's house in the land of Reuben, where her tribe was. But Ruth said, Nah, I'm going to go with you to your people, meaning to your tribe. That's all she was saying. She wasn't a different race. Ruth was an Israelite. Okay, the third and biggest argument people use to say Ruth can't be an Israelite is a short conversation that Naomi had with Ruth in verse 15 and 16. Ruth 1:15. And she said, this is what Naomi said to Ruth, Behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people and unto her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. Now people read this and they say, see, Ruth and her sister were serving other gods. But no, that's not what this is saying at all. Look at it. Naomi said to Ruth, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people, meaning she went back to her tribe. Then it says, and unto her gods. Now stop. Let's prove that this is not talking about idols or other gods or anything like that. Watch this. It said she went back unto her gods. Now, Ruth 1:1 says this. Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled. Again, we see that the story of Ruth took place in the days when the judges of Israel were ruling. Remember that. The judges were ruling. Back to Ruth 1:15. It says, Thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people, meaning her tribe, and unto her gods. Let's look up this word gods and see what gods Ruth's sister went back to. Here it is. This is the word gods in that verse. It's the Hebrew word Elohim, and the first meaning is rulers, judges. So when the scripture says that she went back unto her gods, it means that she went back to her rulers or her judges, the judges over her tribe. See, remember, the story of Ruth took place in the days when the judges ruled. Those are the gods that she went back to, the judges. See, this is why you have to know the history, because during this time, there were different judges placed in each tribe to rule over the people. The Most High set it up that way. Look at this, Deuteronomy 16, verse 18. It says, "Judges and officers shalt thou make thee in all thy gates, which the Lord thy God giveth thee, throughout thy tribes, and they shall judge the people with just judgment." See, every tribe had rulers and judges over them. The judges in the land of Reuben were different from the judges in the land of Judah. So when you look at Ruth 1:15, all Naomi said was that Ruth's sister went back to her tribe and back to her judges that were set up in the land of Reuben. That's it. Now, after that, Naomi told Ruth to go back with her sister, but this is what Ruth said in verse 16. And Ruth said, "Entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God." Ruth is telling Naomi, I'm going wherever you go. We're family. That's what she's saying. Now let me show you something. I want to focus on the part where it says, "Thy people shall be my people," because this is the part that confuses people. They think Ruth is saying that she's not an Israelite. So let's focus on that section that says, "Thy people shall be my people." If you have a King James Version Bible, which you should have, and you look at this verse in your Bible, you'll notice that the words "shall be" are in italics. Now, whenever you see words in the Bible that are written in italics, that means that those words were not in the original Hebrew writings. Those words were added to the scriptures later on by the translators. In other words, the prophets did not write the words "shall be" in this verse. The men who translated the Hebrew writings into English, they inserted the words "shall be." Look at this. This is some information about italicized words in the Bible. You can see the website here if you want to check it out for yourself. It says, "The italicized words in the King James Bible are words that were added by the translators to help the reader." So they're saying that they added these words to help people understand what's being said. And sometimes it does help clarify certain things. However, there are many times when it actually hurts the text, like in this verse, for example. Then it says, "This is usually necessary when translating from one language to another because word meanings and idioms change. So to produce a more readable translation, the King James translators, 1604 to 1611, added certain words to the Bible text. However, to make sure that everyone understood that these words were not in the available manuscripts, they set them in italics. So when you see words in italics, now you understand that these words were added. Okay, now that we have this understanding, let's go back to Ruth and read that verse again. Ruth 1:16, it says, And Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people. Now, let's get rid of the shall be and read that part again. It says, thy people, my people. Ruth was telling Naomi, your people are my people. See, they were both Israelites. They just came from different tribes, that's all. And then Ruth said this, and thy God, my God. Now I could let that last part go like it is, but the truth is, Ruth is not talking about the Most High at the end of this verse. She's still talking about the judges, because Ruth is still responding to what Naomi said about her sister going back to her gods, meaning her judges. So Ruth is saying, I'm going with you, thy judges, my judges. Why? Because Ruth is leaving the land of Reuben and those judges and going to stay in the land of Judah, which had a different set of judges, as we read in Deuteronomy 16 and 18. See, we know about the more popular judges in the Bible because the Bible focuses on their stories and the significant things they did for Israel. But there was a whole system of authority set in place. You had elders, officers, and different men set up in each tribe to handle different situations that would come up. These were the judges. They had authority and power among Israel. Look at this. Exodus 22 and 28. It says, thou shalt not revile the gods, nor curse the ruler of thy people. Now, the word revile means to speak against. Now, obviously, the Most High would not tell us to not speak against idols. So we know that this is not talking about false gods. It's talking about the rulers that were set up over the Israelites, the judges. We were not supposed to speak against the judges. That's why the end of the verse says, nor curse the ruler of thy people. So don't get caught up on the word God in the book of Ruth. Understand that it's talking about the judges. All right. The last argument I'm going to deal with, number 4, is Ruth saying she was a stranger to Boaz. Ruth 2 verse 10. Then she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground and said unto him, why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? So people read this and they say, see, Ruth was from another nation. She was a Moabite. Nope. Once again, we have to look at why she said that. Let's go to verse 8. Then said Boaz unto Ruth, hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here fast by my maidens. When Boaz saw Ruth gathering corn in his field, he told Ruth, don't leave, stay here in my field with the other women. He let Ruth know that he didn't want her to leave. Then he said this, verse 9, let thine eyes be on the field that they do reap, and go thou after them. Have I not charged the young men that they shall not touch thee? Now, Boaz is letting Ruth know that he already told the men not to touch her. Then it says, and when thou art athirst, go unto the vessels and drink of that which the young men have drawn. So then Boaz told Ruth, look, when you get thirsty, take a break and go get some water. It's all right. Now stop for a second and think about what's happening. Boaz is being extra nice to Ruth. Now let's read verse 10 again. It says, then she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground and said unto him, why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? So all Ruth is saying is, why are you being so nice to me and you don't even know me? Why are you being so nice? See, this doesn't have anything to do with her being a stranger in the sense of her being an actual Moabite by blood. She called herself a stranger in the sense that Boaz didn't know her. That's why when she said she was a stranger, Boaz said this in verse 11. And Boaz answered and said unto her, It have been fully showed me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thine husband. In other words, Boaz was like, I already heard all about you. Now, we're not going to read it now, but if you read verses 5 and 6, you'll see that Boaz's servants already told him who Ruth was, where she was from, and the whole 9 yards. So Boaz said, I heard all about you. Now look at this. And how thou hast left thy father and thy mother and the land of thy nativity, meaning the land that she was born in. Now we already proved that Ruth was born in the country of Moab, which is in the land that was given to the tribe of Reuben. It's also called the plains of Moab, which we already proved. Then Boaz said this, talking about Ruth, and art come unto a people which thou knewest not heretofore. He said that because Ruth didn't know the Israelites in the land of Judah. Don't be ridiculous and think that every Israelite knew each other. At this point, you had millions of Israelites. Do you personally know every Israelite that you see? Of course not. That's what Ruth meant when she said she was a stranger. Boaz didn't know her personally. He just heard about her from the servants. So that's all she meant. Now, before I close, I want to ask a question and make a point for those that's watching this. Let's deal with the law of the kinsman. Here it is. Numbers 27 and 8. And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a man die and have no son, then ye shall cause his inheritance to pass unto his daughter. And if he have no daughter, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his brethren. And if he have no brethren, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his father's brethren. And if his father have no brethren, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his kinsman that is next to him of his family. And he shall possess it, and it shall be unto the children of Israel a statute of judgment as the Lord commanded Moses. Now that's what happened in the story of Ruth. Ruth found out that Boaz was a near kinsman, and she wanted Boaz to marry her. But watch what Boaz said. This is Ruth 3 and 12. This is Boaz talking. And now it is true that I am thy near kinsman. Howbeit, there is a kinsman nearer than I. Now, why did Boaz hesitate to marry Ruth? He hesitated because he knew that he was not the nearest kinsman. The law said that it had to be the closest relative, the nearest kinsman. And Boaz knew that there was another relative that was closer than him. So this verse proves that Boaz was not willing to break the Most High's law. So this is what he told Ruth to do. Verse 13. Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning, that if he will perform unto thee the part of a kinsman, well, let him do the kinsman part. But if he will not do the part of a kinsman to thee, then will I do the part of a kinsman to thee, as the Lord liveth. Lie down until the morning. So here's my question. If Boaz was this careful and this concerned about keeping the law properly when it came to Ruth, why would he be so careless and marry Ruth if she was an actual Moabite by blood? Deuteronomy 23 and 3 says, An Ammonite or Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. Even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of the Lord forever. So you saying Boaz just disregarded this law and he married an actual Moabite after he went out of his way to make sure that he kept the law properly? Come on, y'all. You know that don't make no sense at all. Boaz made sure that he didn't break the Most High's law, so that he could marry Ruth, but then he's going to break the law and marry Ruth when she's a Moabite? Nah, that don't line up. And if you honest, you know that don't work. That doesn't work. This is what happened. Boaz did everything right so that he could marry Ruth, the Israelite woman who came from the country of Moab. That's what happened. That makes sense. That lines up with the scriptures. So in conclusion, Ruth was an Israelite who was born during the time of Judges in the land that belonged to the tribe of Reuben. We just went through the full breakdown, precept upon precept. Ruth was an Israelite.